was just jumping up and down at the end of the session. She was like, yeah, let's go. And then I turned both my ankles on the floor, and I'm on the ground. Everyone's still hype. I'm like laying on the ground like this. I'm like, guys, I think I sprained both my ankles.
What's up, guys? Today's guest is a pioneer of tricking who's turned himself into a professional dancer and is pursuing a career in acting. Please welcome to the JAMCast, Mr. Steve Terada. What's up, Steve?
What's up, man? How's it going?
This is crazy, guys. I've known Steve for a long time, right?
Yeah, since we're 11 or 10. It's a long time.
Yeah, and we met each other back on the competition circuit, which is pretty much how I feel like the entire world has always known Steve Terada as a world champion martial artist.
Well, thank you. yeah, that's my background, just flipping around and punching and competing.
Yeah. So how long has Steve Terada been doing martial arts for?
I started in 1993, so doing the math, I haven't, 26 years?
Totally.
Like that.
You know it's a long time when you don't know the years.
Yeah.
You just know the start date. And what kind of martial arts did you branch into? Or how'd you get into it? Was it just like after school karate, or did you take it serious at first?
Well, my actual first class was when I was 5 at the rec center, and I was a quiet kid, so I didn't like all the yelling, and I didn't come back for, 4 more years?
Yeah, okay.
Till later, because there was a school next to the supermarket, and I was like, oh, maybe we'll try that now. So, and I started getting into watching Ninja Turtles and Karate Kid, like a lot of other kids. So I just started up at the local studio, and luckily I got to find a really good one there at Tom Bloom Karate.
Ah, okay.
And that was they do Korean American Tong Sudo.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so that was basically your starter school. And is that the school that you still trained out of as you competed and progressed through your career?
Yes, actually, I stuck with, that was a branch school in Thousand Oaks.
Okay.
And I started going to the main school a little bit later on, and they had a demo team there, and that's how I got into starting to go to local tournaments, NBL league, and then from there, I just met more and more people, and eventually started doing NASKA through just meeting more people and knowing people like Jimmy Pham and all those old school competitors that I was like, wow, these guys are amazing, and I just wanted to get to that level, and that's what pushed me.
Okay. And was martial arts something that always came easy to you, or was it difficult when you started? Like, did you find yourself excelling beyond all the other kids and classmates, or?
I think when I started, I definitely had a passion for it right away. I thought it was fun. So I was over at the studio a lot, and I think that really helped me develop my skill set. Just being around it so much, and being as a kid, you're a sponge, so you just soak up all the information.
Yeah. Was that like your sport, so to speak, as a kid? Did you do any other sports growing up, or was the focus martial arts?
When I was a kid, I did all the different sports, like baseball. Cool. I did a lot of basketball, which my dad loved, because he wanted me to do all that stuff, and he thought martial arts was, just for fun. It's a hobby. But my mom was like, "Oh, he's really good at this." So I quit all my other sports once I got into high school.
Okay.
And just focused mostly on just the martial arts and starting to compete a little bit during that time.
Okay. So was your first introduction to the competition circuit, was it like smaller range circuits before the national circuit, or how did you start competing?
I started, like I said before, with the demo team, because we would do the Vegas Internationals, do the demonstration.
Okay.
And once we went to the local ones too, we saw a whole different level of competition of open forms and all these guys with these flashy sequin things, and we're just, this little school. And once we started meeting more people from there, we made up creative forms, and everyone had kind of template type form styles. And then once we started getting introduced to more and more movement, we branched out a little bit more.
Okay.
And started going to bigger tournaments after that.
Totally. And for everyone that's at home listening, when you're doing these martial arts tournaments, what format were you doing? Were you doing just fighting? Were you doing forms? What does it entail when you competed?
Well, we would do sparring. That's like point sparring. So that's almost like kind of like fencing almost. Well, you have to get the first it's
like tag,
point, like tag,
okay,
whatever. But I mostly did open forms, musical forms, which you choreograph music to a routine that you make up, and I would do traditional forms.
Okay, cool. And that's definitely what you were known for over the years. So how long was it on the small circuit before you decided, okay, I'm going to enter NASKA and go at the national level and really try to attack these championships?
Well, what was different for me is that my parents weren't really subsidizing my travel or anything like that. So when I first started, they would give maybe like $100 or $200 for these local tournaments for grand champion. So I had to train to get to a level where I would make that money, and that would be my tournament fund.
Wow.
And the farthest that I would be able to go, like my parents would come with, would be Las Vegas, and they would give $1,000
to win that
to win the overalls for that. So it took me a few years to get to that level and actually win that, and then I put that in the tournament fund. And luckily, I made a lot of other friends where they would let me go with them, and like Raymond Daniels and Manny Bujold. They were all national competitors, and they would let me stay in their hotel rooms, and they would be my
like your chaperone for the weekend.
Chaperone for that type of stuff. So I saved a little money like that, and I think when I started doing NASKA and started traveling, I had enough funds to go to compete nationals, which was California.
Pomona.
And then Pomona, so I could drive to that. And then I was training with Arnold Chan at the time, and he was from Virginia.
Yes.
So I stayed with him.
He's from the June Ree School or something, right?
June Ree. Totally. So I was sponsored kind of by June Ree School a little bit, and then I ended up winning that tournament in what's it called, Washington, over there, and went to Arizona because that was local. Drove with some other people, and by that time I won 4 out of the 5 tournaments, I think. That I did. I won Diamond Nationals, which was the biggest one.
The big one back then. Yeah.
So that caught attention to Team Paul Mitchell. And with some good friends too, saying like, oh, I should be on it. I got on it the following year, because if it wasn't for that, I probably would have ran out of funds and then had to keep on working through.
So literally, if you didn't get picked up by Paul Mitchell, we may have never seen your competition career.
Possibly. Hopefully, I would have gotten one of the sponsors, but my main goal was to get on Paul Mitchell, because the people that I grew up watching, they were all sponsored by Paul Mitchell, and that's considered the best. Like John Valera and David Douglas was on, and Mike Chat, and like all the greats, Jimmy Pham.
Yeah, and to be fair, for a lot of people that don't know, Paul Mitchell is actually probably one of the first major sponsors of the North American sport karate circuit in general, which was always so weird because it was a hair product, but they had like the biggest presence. Besides Paul Mitchell, I guess there was only a few other teams, like Straight Up at the time, right? There was
there were
Team Kanai for fighting at one point. There was a couple things,
It's pretty crazy, but I always say, not just because I was on the team, but Paul Mitchell, they're one of the best companies to work for, and the reason why they got even picked up, I think back in the 80s, was that they had like the owners had an interest in martial arts, and they were like, let's just do that, do this, and then locally they started small, and then they just developed into this amazing team.
Craziness. Okay, so when you were sponsored and picked up, how old were you, and how many other people were sponsored at the time?
I started up with Paul Mitchell when I was 17. I was maybe 2. I think I was maybe like one other. There was one other junior at the time. It was Wayne Dalglish.
Wow.
So he was a little kid back then. He was 11 and
wearing
just
the bandana with the bow
staff. He was amazing. And there was Butch Marks.
Yes,
and
of course.
I think that was it for the juniors at that time. But for adults there, I think we had five adult forms competitors, and then they had a whole bunch of sparring
A bunch of fighters.
A bunch of fighters.
Yeah, fighting was really
So
big.
they were really big during that time too.
So what did your sponsorship entail with Paul Mitchell? Like, how did it take you to the next level? Did they cover travel or entrance fees? How did that work?
Yeah, pretty much you could enter any division you wanted.
Wow.
So during that time, even if you were sponsored for forms, you could do point sparring, which I occasionally did when I was in my juniors before I focused mostly just on all the forms divisions. But they would do that, fly you out. You had a roommate,
cool.
And they would give you per diem for the weekend. So it's pretty much the best sponsorship that you could get for the karate circuit at the time.
Yeah, and if you win the championship, you keep the money yourself.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, and if we did well enough, sometimes John Paul would come to like the bigger sponsored tournaments.
Yeah.
And a few times when we did really well, they would give us bonuses. I was like, whoa, this is amazing.
You're like, wow,
you know,
this
it's
is cool.
so great during that time because it's almost unheard of on the circuit for any other team to have that.
Yeah, and it's funny. I feel very weird like sitting here asking you questions because I feel like I know your career so well. Like I followed and have competed against Steve for so long that I feel like I know most of his story, but it's incredible. How do you know how many titles you've won? Is there a number at the end, or is the answer just a shitload?
Yeah, I don't really know. You know, it's like a thing. Everyone says I'm a 30-something time world champion. You know, it's like at a certain point, I just looked at the individuals and respected who I thought was amazing at what they do. Because, you know, there's a lot of underrated competitors, which I think should have won more often.
Yes,
just like my good friend, like my little bro, Rudy Raynon.
Yeah.
He didn't win all the time, like when he was a junior, but I thought he was one of the most creative people out there.
So clean.
So, because when you're being judged on something that's so... in the cusp of you're like a pioneer almost.
Yes.
People aren't going to understand what you're doing. And that's, my era was the start of the big tricking boom with that and where traditional was starting to go into more of an extreme side.
Yeah.
So, you know, the judges sometimes won't understand that because they're old school traditional martial arts.
Yeah, and I mean, you kind of touched on it right then, but basically you are one of the pioneers of tricking, like of modern day tricking, in the sense of you were around at the creation of it and one of the first guys to really integrate it into your creative and extreme forms. How long have you been tricking, and like, was it considered tricking when you started, or were you just thinking of doing cool moves?
When I first threw my first 540, I think that was like 1996 or 95 or something like that.
That's crazy.
But they would call them tricks because there were only, I don't know, 5 foundational moves really.
540 aerial,
540
butterfly
aerial, kick. Like pop 720 maybe.
Yeah.
Like, and everything else was still considered just martial arts. You know, if you do a pop 360, it would, you know,
it's still a jump
kick. You know, and there weren't very many variations of anything like that. And during that time, they had rules.
Yes, there was a lot of rules.
In NBL especially, where it'd be like, oh, you only have this many gymnastics moves.
Yes.
And they didn't even call them tricks. So there was that time it was a little bit controversial because if you had too many, you'd be disqualified. But these tricks were coming out during my era that didn't have a category for gymnastics. It was like, oh, we would have to show them, can you apply this in a martial arts kicking fashion where it would be effective? Well, I mean, loosely effective, of course. But have a martial arts application.
A big difference from just doing a backflip.
Exactly.
As doing a move that has an executed kick at the end.
Yeah, so that's why we say flash kick instead of step out, because there's intent behind the movement.
Totally.
So that's where I came from was, all right, if I'm going to do any type of aerial movement, I'm going to try and variate it to have a kick in it that has some sort of application. Loosely.
Totally.
Not that you're going to do it in a street fight, but to be able to show the arbitrators or anyone that has something to contest against you, so you back yourself up.
So how did you even conceptualize these tricks? Did you have people you were looking up to, or did you just hit a point in your career you were like, I can do this move, let me try to add something to it?
A lot of it during that time was trial and error, because during that time there weren't very many resources for tricks. So like I'd train with other people in the gym, and then you'd fall, and then you'd be like, oh, that's weird.
Something was wrong.
Like something was different that time, and then you really went off of how you felt and your muscle memory, anything like that. And you would play games like add on.
Okay.
You'd add on combinations, and then sometimes just by doing that transition faster, like they call them like vanish now, like shifting into the next movement, you gain extra power. And sometimes just trying to catch and stay on your feet, you have a different hip positioning. Things like that that are like happy mistakes where you're not really analyzing yourself to do it at the start. You gain an air sense, and then you start building up this vocabulary of movement where you can, I can kick out of that, I can round kick out of that, I can crescent kick, and all those different things.
Yeah, totally. And one thing that I know just from my own personal experience is nowadays kids have trampoline parks, they have gyms they can go to. What were the conditions like when you were learning tricks? Like, were you learning in foam pits, or how were you learning these things?
I was lucky enough to have just a spring floor. I would go to LA Valley College, which at the time, they had a lot of B-boys, like legendary B-boys would train there, a lot of legendary stunt people.
Yeah.
And I was one of the only kids there at training there. My mom would drive me out like 30 miles to go like do this open session.
Okay.
And I didn't know the difference between the different. Well, I mean, I knew that I was doing martial arts, but when I would watch these creatives outside of martial arts, I would be like, I wonder if I could do that. And then I built up different movements to apply in my creative forms.
Okay.
It was primarily through competition based, and I would want to come up with new ideas.
Okay.
Just by workshopping and like visualizing. It was like, dance stuff, it's very like similar in a way.
Yeah.
To what I'm doing.
Okay. And now this is a crazy question out there. What moves have you invented? I mean, there's a bunch, right? There's a bunch that I think you're credited with. Are there any that stand out in your mind? I mean, obviously you're snap a swipe king. Everyone relates flash kicks to you. Like, is there any other move that you would credit yourself with?
I guess Terada grab.
Terada grab.
Like I didn't even call it that. I think during that time I was just making up moves, and then almost like snap swipe was a funny one just because when I named it, it was more of a joke name, and I would just post it on the forums.
No way. Okay.
Like I was training with Arnold at the time, and he would do this very like funny kung fu master bit where he goes like Senchi, blah blah. When you kick, you have to snapper and all this other stuff. So I would just say it's like, it's a snapu swipe because you do a like snapu, and then when you kick, you have to recoil really hard, and that's what Arnold would say. Like the rechamber is like you have to have the snapu. So that's how it came. Because so when I kicked, I would rechamber really hard or snapu into the twist. So they were just a whole bunch of funny names. That's why I think like a lot of these names are just somewhat funny, but then now it just becomes like a serious thing just because it sticks.
That's crazy. So when you did your first snap a swipe, what was the thinking behind it? Were you just thinking, I can side swipe so high I can twist, or what drove you to do the twist?
That was actually one of those things where I was trying a different move.
Oh, what were you trying?
I was trying to work on swipe knives.
Okay.
So you know, it's like it has a similar type of thing. So when I went for the swipe, I kicked as hard as I could because I wanted my hips to turn over, and then I fell, but I was on my forward on my
completed a rotation.
So I completed a rotation. I was like, whoa, that was weird. I didn't know what it looked like because we didn't have camera phones.
That's
or
what I'm
like
saying.
That.
People don't realize how cool it is that you can film on your phone and watch.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why it was it was so rare to have footage of yourself.
Yes.
We had 8mm cameras, or Tony Chu would come up from north and then film and then put it on the computer. I was like, whoa.
That's crazy.
I want to get one of those, and I was like, I didn't even know how to do it, but yeah, it was just stuff like that. So a lot of it was based on feeling or watching other people.
Okay.
So you couldn't really watch yourself all the time.
Yeah, that's a completely different. I've had talks with a lot of veteran trickers about this, that the lack of YouTube, the lack of cameras that have slow motion on your cell phone. These are all things that kids take for granted these days when they're training. You know, how did you stay up to date with the tricks then, since there wasn't YouTube and stuff? Were you just like seeing each other at tournaments, or how'd you keep up to date?
It was split between tournaments and using Byling.com for
Yes.
myself.
Shout out to Billy Byling.
Yeah, Billy Byling. That was the biggest thing. It was a big motivation for me because I got to talk to a community finally. And I was on there all the time at the start when I found out about that. I found it out through Trick Busters and Yellow Boy and all those old sites.
Half the people have no idea who you're talking about right
so
now.
Yellow Boy was the first tricking site ever. Where you got to actually see people do variations, from all the people from loop kicks.
Yeah.
But they were West Coast karate during the time.
Yes.
So I found out that, and then I found out martial arts tricks bylink.com.
Okay.
And it's like people would have certain small samplers that they would do, and then it was more of a discussion because it was really hard to upload video during the time because you had to pay for web space.
Yeah.
So it
just
wasn't
to
a
host
free
it,
thing
right?
just to host it.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of discussion about like concepts or explaining a trick or like what is this or if it's been done or whatever like that.
Okay.
And it was a process to do that. And then at karate tournaments, you had a karate tournament every month.
Yes.
So if I lost a tournament one time, then the next month I'd be like, all right, I'm gonna train this new move. I'm gonna stick it in there and see how it goes. And then we would have little tricking circles and and things in between the tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, you were part of some of the first ever, I guess you could say, trick battles per se. But when they first started, they weren't even like one-on-one battles. They were more like extreme kick contests, right?
Yes.
I think that's how things started back with like a Charlie Lee Nationals, French Open, things like that. And how have things changed? Like you were there in the beginning. What was it like back then to battle compared to battle formats now?
Well, it was a lot more open. It was more like, okay, it's your turn, and you just base it off. It was almost like a karate tournament forms thing, just different rounds.
Okay.
So
it would be a bunch of people at once, so it wasn't like one-on-one.
Yeah,
five or six of you on a stage.
Yeah, it wasn't one-on-one, head-to-head, so it was a little bit more subjective of feeling sometimes, or because during that time we were still being judged by promoters and other martial. It wasn't by our peers or anyone from the community for those things. So a lot of it was crowd appeal or anything like that. I always go back. It's changed so much, and when people talk about judging per se, it's like when I did my first Extreme Kicks contest, I remember throwing a pop 10, and then the thing that put Kalmanchoka over the top was a corkscrew.
Yes.
And if you think about that now,
wow.
It's like, wow, pop 10's way harder than a corkscrew.
Really
so it was, I think you did corkscrew, step back into an aerial, into like.
But at the time,
cork
was just a weird move, whereas pop 10 just looked like a jump kick.
Yeah, because you could recognize it.
Yes.
It was a vert 3 spin with a hook kick.
Okay.
And then cork, people weren't doing inverted twists off one leg. So during that time, that was the new thing. And that's the difference where I think when you're judging too, if something's pioneered or groundbreaking for that time in the present, that sometimes can take over difficulty.
Okay.
So during that time, it was a lot different than it is now.
Yeah, things have changed so much. And I remember, I distinctly remember there was one French Open. It was the world's introduction to Anis.
Yeah.
And Anis kept falling every single pass. It's one of the craziest things. Do you remember what year that was? Was that?
Well, I think that was 2002.
Wow. Can you try to pull it up, Paul? Type a French Open Extreme with the X, Extreme Kick Contest 2003. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, with those kick contests back in the day, I mean, who was judging them? Because you guys were basically the pioneers of tricking. So who was picking the winner based out of you guys?
Oh, during that time, it was still the promoters and same type of judges that you would have at a karate tournament. Maybe one adult competitor if they weren't in there.
Who wasn't battling? Yeah. Let's see if 2000.
I think it was either 2002 or 2003.
Yeah, let's see.
If it's senior and junior. He was in the juniors against Matt Emmy.
Yes, he was against young Matt Emmy. Man, that's a crazy video.
So it was in there. But yeah, Anis during that time, I remember the feeling too, because all the Americans came.
Yes.
And during that, I think that was maybe the second or third year that we introduced Europe to tricking at that time, because the difference between all of those things were. Oh yeah, there's Matt.
Wow, this is crazy.
Yeah, 2003.
Paul, can you go back a second so we can see the names during this clip, guys? So what we're watching right now is Extreme Kicks Contest. Matt Emmy, Sammy Vasquez, Mark Candidazato, Anish Sherfa with the Y in front,
yeah.
and Steve Terada. Holy crap. This is crazy, man. Yeah, go ahead and play that, Paul. And this is so crazy. We'll put some of this on screen for you guys to see. But like, as you'll see in this format here, it was so different, you know? It was just like one guy would go, another guy would go. Wow, we just saw 3 round-off tricks in a row. And here's little Matt Emig doing his normal stuff, just tricking in a small space. Wow, and there's Anish falling.
Yeah, but he's going for stuff that people don't usually do during this. Now it's normal. But, a lot of the twisting stuff wasn't really in the scene yet because, like I said, like all these people besides Anish, they were martial arts competitors
first. Yeah.
So if you were just twisting all the time, it wasn't as good as if you did like a full twist round or like any variations, because that was considered straight gymnastics.
Oh yeah, totally.
During that time.
Yeah, but, so it's crazy. Like you're kind of alluding to, the tricks that Anish fell on would be like he fell on a double full, but no one else has thrown a double yet in this whole battle so far. Oh, until double B twist right then.
And that's Pop 10 by Mark.
And what's crazy to me, though, is that like some of the tricks that are being thrown in this video are still being thrown at a higher level and more cleanly executed than some guys these days, which is crazy. But I guess it's just because there was a lack of moves back then. So
yeah, I think during the time the speed of which the tricks were coming out were slower, just because of having the resource to actually watch and then train them. So like right there, like cork wasn't.
Guys, Anish just went for cork and fell, but no one's doing cork.
No one's really doing that. And I think I remember all of this too. I remember we're like, okay, we're doing all this stuff. We're starting to variate our things, and then we all kicked a lot more.
Yes.
And I forgot how old Anish was, maybe 14 during this time.
Yeah, he was very young. Yeah.
And he was the only non-American in this. So we're like, all right, we got to just,
And you're in France, in his backyard, too.
Yeah, so it was almost like the America versus like Europe type of feel.
That's crazy, man. And do you remember how long after that you saw Anish come onto the scene as Anish? Was it shortly after that or a couple years?
It was short. I think the next year or so, he started doing, actually landing those things. And then, he was still a lanky kid back then. So it just looked crazy. There weren't a lot of, during that time, it was considered better to be shorter and stockier for tricks. Yeah. And he was one of the first, besides like Mark and things like that, to be a little bit more lanky, but he was the first one I feel like that was lanky and had a lot of power.
Yes, 100%.
Throughout these movements, and I remember during that time I was like, dang, he's killing it.
Yeah, he was one of the first guys where I remember watching him being like, oh, he's trying to kill people with his kicks,
Exactly.
Like, there's very few guys that were out there looking like a real life video game character. So. And I remember it was a big deal when he did, I think he was the first to do double cork in NASKA, potentially. I think he did hook raise double.
Which
was pretty crazy.
In competition,
yes,
definitely.
In competition, I think in a form, he was like one of the first, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is crazy to see, though, man, just the progression of the sport. And what's crazy, though, is that a lot of people owe this progression to you, Like, you're probably one of the first people that really got famous for doing extreme sports forms, I remember seeing just... there's a French Open one that was really famous of you just doing your hand form back in the days.
Yeah, I think it was on E-Bombs World or any of those things. I was Bruce Lee's cousin or something like that. Really bad quality, but
totally.
But yeah, I was.
So I got a personal question. How did you used to pick out your music back in the day?
That was the hardest thing.
See, I'm curious about this. Yeah, because
we didn't. The internet was so hard to find music, but. Back in the day, this is gonna date me so long. There used to be something called Blockbuster Music, which died out even earlier than Blockbuster Video. Totally. So you would be able to go into the CD store, and pick out CDs that you wanted to, like listen to
yeah.
before you bought it. So I would just go, and I remember my mentor, Hiro Koda, he would always say, oh, check out techno.
Hey guys,
because it would
way,
be fast.
Shout out to Hiro Koda, guys.
Yeah, he's
legend in the game. Yeah.
But yeah, he would say, oh yeah, choose techno because it has fast beats. So I just go in the techno section. I had no idea because it's not mainstream or anything. I just look under there, listen to a whole bunch. I was like, oh, this sucks.
Dang, that's
and just
crazy.
try and find things like that. Or whoever I was training with at the time, used to have like David Douglas was coaching me at a time, and Arnold Chan during there. So sometimes I would use their music from past, because they would just say, oh,
they moved on.
They've moved on. It's like, you use this, and then we'd choreograph stuff to it. And then I think the We Are the World song, I really like that one.
Yes.
Because Arnold did it, and he's just so freaking fast, with it, and the music is really fast also. So I found a remix of that song and then started using that.
Yes.
But
yeah, I remember that one. The other one was Big in Japan.
Big in Japan
was iconic back in the days. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Arnold gave me that music too
way.
Some random CD, like I don't know, some techno compilation thing.
Crazy.
but yeah, we would throw it on our mini discs and edit it down, so we had to walk the music, and then it was good.
Man, that's so different. Is there a tournament or a moment in your competition career that stands out that you remember or the most proud of, or is there a significant time?
I think for tournament-wise, it's always Diamond Nationals, because that was considered the most prestigious for the circuit, because it was the year ender.
Okay.
And if you made it all the way, usually there'd be trends of you'd work your way throughout the year, and then at a certain point it would almost be automatic, because people weren't changing their forms as much. So if you can execute your form for that season, by that time, the judges expect to see like a flawless form during that. So Diamond Nationals, I think it was 2005 was the one title that I got, and that was maybe I don't know. I was on a drought that whole entire up until that point for my adult career.
Oh wow! Okay.
To win diamonds, and then that was the first time that I did that. So that was amazing.
That's crazy.
And winning the title, I remember one U.S. Open where I just won pretty much all my divisions. And then we did team sync forms with Rudy.
Oh, Rudy was your partner then. Okay.
And we won that.
Yeah.
And then I think I won 4 forms divisions: traditional, creative, extreme, and musical. And then I won overall for that. So I came away with I don't know, all these titles during that time. And then that one probably has the most amount of people that compete at it, because it's on ESPN too, and everything like that. And the extreme tricks, I think during that time we won that too. So that was just more like it's like, wow, everything's coming together. And that's halfway through the season, and then at the end of the season, then I won Diamond Nationals. So those two probably stand out the most for me.
Yeah, totally. I remember you just being probably one of the most dominating figures on the circuit. And then I think the one thing that stood out to me where I recognized you was a Black Eyed Peas music video. Yeah. So what video was that? And was that one of your first introductions in the industry, or how did that happen?
Yeah, it was one of my first. That was Black Eyed Peas "Pump It."
Yes,
and
"Pump It" in the parking garage.
Yeah, it was with Hiro Koda.
Okay.
He brought me on, and I got to work with Rich and Tone Talluega.
Yes. For
the first time. That's the first time I met them. I've worked with them multiple times after that. They're amazing dance choreographers.
Yeah,
legendary.
Shout out to Rich and Tone. If you guys don't know them, they work with MJ back in the days and stuff. Incredible dancers, guys. Yeah. But
yeah, the funny thing about that is that I did the rehearsal with 2 sprained ankles.
No way.
And then from the night before, I was trained at LA Valley with some of my crew members, Hawk and Ryan from Quest now.
Yeah.
And I was hyping Hawk up to do a gainer. So I was just jumping up and down at the end of the session. I was like, yeah, let's go. And then I turned both my ankles on the floor, and I'm on the ground. Everyone's still hype. I'm laying on the ground like this. I'm like, guys, I think I sprained both my ankles. and
Not even doing a trick.
I'm not even doing anything. So
Man,
so the next day I had to go to the rehearsal. I was like, I'll be good for tomorrow. Don't worry, I was like, oh god.
Oh my god, dude.
And then
You're the hype man that I want. If you sprain your ankle, it's getting hyped.
It just got too crazy. Got too
crazy, man. Well, I mean, you kind of alluded to it right then by mentioning your crew members. So you're also a member of the world famous Quest crew, which has got incredible accolades and accomplishments on its own. In the dance world, how did you go from martial arts to becoming a member of Quest?
Well, I always danced a little bit in my years after high school because of my sister. She was at UCLA and then got into the dance scene around there, like collegiately.
Okay.
And she was passing by Thousand Oaks where I was living to do a show, and like, oh, there's like a little section. Do you want to like flip around and stuff? And one of their shows, I was like, oh, sure. So I got introduced to dance that way.
Okay.
And that crew eventually, years later, like people like Hawk and the people that are on Quest right now, they joined a crew called Six Step that I was part of.
Holy crap, man.
Yeah, and eventually we broke off from there and made Quest.
Okay.
But during that time, it was more of a social thing because when I was thinking about it, I wasn't thinking I'm going to be a dancer now or anything like that. All my friends were out of state because of the karate circuit, and those are my friends.
You just see them at tournaments.
Yeah, I see them at tournaments every month. I talk to them online and all this other stuff, but I didn't have a real social life down here. So I started doing that just to meet more people.
Wow.
And to have local friends in different communities. So that happened, and then I just really vibed with the guys and started focusing more and more on dance and learning different movement, basically.
Yeah.
I would always still trick and incorporate that into the dance because that was my specialty. But learning from them a lot too gave me another passion to focus my energy on.
And how long have you guys been a crew? Do you know when you guys started, or?
For Quest, we started in October of 2006.
Wow,
so
that's
it's been
long
about
time
12
ago.
years. Yeah. So we just had our anniversary.
Yeah.
We have an anniversary party every Halloween because our first show was at a Halloween party.
Yeah. So that's why you guys have the Halloween parties, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
If you ever get invited to a Quest crew Halloween party, they're cool, man.
They're crazy.
The Facebook invitation alone is worth it. You got to read.
Shout out to Ryan and May for throwing that every year.
those are genius things he's wrote. So take me through that then. So you guys are just a bunch of guys hanging out, just dancing for fun. Do you guys start by doing performances or competitions? How do you go from being a crew to going to America's Best Dance Crew?
Well, that's mostly luck.
What?
Just because, well, okay. I mean, we always want to put on good shows.
Yes.
So most of our background wasn't in like collegiate dance formats shows, which a lot like the types of events we would previously go to were like. So we just wanted to put on a good show, and that's kind of our mentality for putting these things together. Was it's like, we don't have to do a choreography that's intricate that only dance performers or dancers would understand.
Okay.
It's just more like, what are you good at? What are you good at? That's why we're like a chessboard kind of. We have different moves.
It's just moments.
We don't move the same all the time. Everyone has their own specialties, and then we just a lot of moments and things like that. So when we went into doing more group performances, we had a different format than most people and a different mentality. So it just so happened that Hawk got onto So You Think You Can Dance the previous year.
Yes, I forgot.
And one of the producers from that said, I'm starting this, I'm going to be working on this new show. You guys should audition for it.
Okay.
And we were like, oh, okay, cool. It's like at that time, if you're from LA in the industry, you're like, oh, cool, an audition.
Yeah, it's just a part of life.
Let's just try it, right? So we went in not knowing what to expect, and they wanted us to do it. And this is first season of America's Best Dance Crew.
Yeah.
And they made a package for us and everything like that. But then there was a contract issue because Hawk and
because of the other show, or
because of So You Think You Can Dance. So they weren't released. Actually, that was one of our first shows ever doing with Dietrich's at the time.
Okay.
So he just joined up because he did So You Think You Can Dance, and then he started hanging out with us and joined up. And then that was pretty much maybe the first time that we worked with D was auditioning for that.
Okay, but you guys didn't get to compete on that season.
Because of the contract issue. They had to wait a whole year after that.
It's so funny that
released.
It's funny to me that the producer of that show created this show, and there still was a contract.
Well, lawyers and contracts.
It's all about
happens.
the money. Well, that makes a lot of sense then. So Jabberwockies go on to win first season. Okay, so then when do you guys get called back, or how do you guys get back on?
Well, once we watched that season, we're like, okay, we know the format.
Yes,
we're gonna take this whole year to train and build our chemistry and moments and stunts and our workflow, because like I said, some of them like Fang and Dietrich's didn't work with us up until that point. So just to get everything together, we set ourselves out because we weren't doing as many things back then. So honestly, at least a lot of them they quit their jobs at the bank.
Wow.
Quit school.
No way. To commit to this.
They were like, if we're gonna do this, we have to do this 100%, because we saw like the Jabberwockies and what type of success they would have like after that.
Yeah, they were.
And we were, they did so much stuff for them. So we're like, all right, if we want to go for our dreams, let's focus on it. So for that whole entire year, we just trained.
Wow.
And unfortunately, I blew out my knee at the U.S. Open that year, which ended my competition career.
Which we're going to come back to, because I definitely want to talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got delayed another time. Okay.
No, actually, what happened was because I think ABDC started in January.
Okay.
And I blew out my knee halfway through training in July
of the previous year.
No, of the first season of ABDC.
Yeah. Okay.
Then we were training. I was still competing, and then July happened, and I blew out my knee at the tournament.
Jeez. Yeah.
And then I had my ACL reconstruction and just PT'd and everything. And then the day of the audition, I think it was October of that year, I got released early so I could audition. And we made it on.
Wow. Okay.
So during the first half of ABDC, I had this huge Don Joy hard brace that went up to my thigh and down. I was like competing on it, so I wasn't 100% at all during that show, but
that's crazy.
Yeah, it worked out.
And what was that experience like for you guys? Like, obviously, you guys were a crew, but did you feel like outsiders in a sense, because you weren't like necessarily? You said you guys didn't necessarily feel like you did the same choreography as everyone else. You weren't doing as many events leading up to it. Did you just really focus on yourselves, and that was your coming out party?
Basically, we went into it with a strategy.
Okay.
We didn't know if it would completely work or not, but it's like we know that the routines are a minute long.
Yes. And
we have this many moves. If in the music, there's usually different moments that we can almost plug and play what we have, and then you just build around it with the concept of whatever the routines were. So it was definitely a learning process during the show.
Okay.
But I feel like, especially as creatives, a lot of people are procrastinators and everything like that. But when you're under pressure, it makes you work harder on that side.
Yeah.
So just like anyone in the industry, it's like things get thrown at you really quick, and that's when you have to lock in and focus, and then that's where creativity comes from. Because because if you don't have that pressure sometimes, then it's like, it'll just come to you.
Yeah.
So when we were put in that situation, we learned that it's like, I feel like we do need that, because when we session creatively, it's just more out of playing around, because that's just a personality. And like even myself, it's like, that felt different. Let's expand on that. It's more exploratory than so much strategic.
Okay.
In that way. So when we're put under the pressure, just trying things during it helped us a lot too. Just having that pressure.
So did you guys go into the competition with preset routines and choreography, or did you have to develop them each and every week?
We had to develop the show every single week.
Wow.
but the moments in between, for safety and to understand that they work visually too. A lot of them we had beforehand. Some of them definitely were made up the week of, but we had a good amount of things to pull out of our bag, so it relieved a lot of stress in that sense.
Yes.
It was just more about some of our bodies were breaking down because we would, pull these long hours and it's like there's always going to be some sort of stressors during that whole entire time.
And did you guys think you were going to win when you were on the stage for that final one, or?
Honestly, no. we were hoping. We felt like we had a better show.
Who took second that year?
Beat Freaks, which are crazy,
savages,
legendary.
Guys. They are legends in the game, guys.
Yeah. It's like I was saying during that time, it was like Keely was one of the first professional dancers I ever met. So I was like, dang. And then they did all these different music videos, and during that time, I feel like the show was pushing. It was like a lot of female empowerment during that time too, and we're like, oh man,
they're almost like an all-star team of female dancers. Like a lot of the girls in that industry they're individually known by themselves as a dancer.
They're already established and amazing. They're still doing stuff now, like crazy.
Okay,
but during that time, it didn't feel like we were, but we were hoping. That's why we're like, oh god, that'd be so cool. But we look so nervous when it actually happened.
Yeah,
because we're like, oh man.
But then you guys win, and then what happens with Quest Crew? Like, you guys just pretty much, from the outside, what I saw was you guys just kind of took off from there too. Just did your own thing. I saw you guys went on tour with LMFAO at one point. Mm-hmm. Like, how did that show help launch you guys in your careers?
Well, it was a really popular show during that time, so we got to do a whole bunch of different events, travel all over the place. We were just being booked. A lot of like inquiries were coming in nonstop, so we got to pick and choose where we wanted to go. So we got to do a lot of things as friends that I think don't usually happen for that many people.
Yeah.
So we just took whatever came at us, and any type of TV things. Like we got invited to do So You Think You Can Dance multiple times, and any of the TV events, we would try and focus on putting together the best show possible and not try and slack off. I mean, we did our early go-tos from the show, just as fan crowd pleasers,
fan favorites and stuff,
and things like that. But it's like we got really efficient at it. But if we did anything outside of that, we wanted to put together a good show that people wouldn't get tired of.
Yeah. And do you have a performance that's a favorite of yours, whether it's one you've done multiple times or not? Or
personally, I really liked our World of Dance 2014, just because that wasn't even a televised thing, but it incorporated pretty much all the new members of Quest during that time, and a lot of the old members. Yeah. Like that was the first show that Dietrich's came back.
Okay.
And we were kind of on a hiatus. Most of us were injured the previous year.
Yeah.
I had cervical spine surgery,
totally.
And then some of them had shoulder surgeries, knee surgeries from doing the LMFAO tour.
Yeah.
And we all came back and made some of the other members official during that night.
So it's a cool
Rudy
moment.
and Joe, and then when we got Dietrich's back in.
Yes.
So we felt that this show was symbolic for that, and it was just a really good show. We still watch it because we remember that feeling.
That's cool.
That brings us together.
And I mean, you just kind of touched on it right now, and it's something that I've always kind of known you for as well, which is dealing with and having to come back from these incredible injuries and being able to rise up from them and get back to the same level you were at before. How many knee surgeries have you had?
I've had 4 knee surgeries.
Wow.
3 ACL full reconstructions with meniscus and 1 separate meniscus.
Okay. And it was on separate knees or both knees?
I've had one of them on my left and the other 3 were on my right.
Wow. And how did you sustain all of them? I know one of them you hurt yourself warming up before a battle, doing hyper snapper swipe, if I'm not incorrect.
That's the one that happened right before ABDC.
Okay, I heard about that time.
Yeah. So during that time was very pivotal too, because that was like my generation of tricking.
Yes.
Against the new gen that was coming up with like the Anises and
Jeremy was battling in that one, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, during that time. So I was training a lot during there, and amping up for the loop kicks battle.
Yes.
The legendary 2008.
2008, yeah.
Loop kicks battle that I didn't get to do.
3-on-3.
And then the U.S. Open, and I knew that they were coming. So I was working on a lot of things during that time. And also, it's like we were training for ABDC, so I wanted to still step up my game from that time to the next.
Okay.
But yeah, it was before I was like, all right, I got this. I think I can hit. I've hit this before, and before the division, people were throwing tricks, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna do it right now. And then it just went. Damn. I was like, and then you have if you've ever had one of those injuries, for some reason you have this thing where you just want to get out of that same spot, and you just rolling yourself back to the corner, and that was my first one on my right knee.
Wow. And then how did you sustain the other ones? Were they always related to tricking and training or freak accidents or?
All directly related to tricking or competition.
Pushing the limits.
My left was my first one, and I landed before finals because I was like, oh, I'm gonna throw this trick.
Okay.
And I landed on the inside of my foot, and my knee went in and tore it, and then I just took a whole bunch of Advil, competed, and then.
Probably made it worse. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I competed on it for another half year. I was like, oh, I'm having lockout issues.
No way. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I had a really good doctor during that time though, so I think it was only a 3.5 month period after that ACL and meniscus, and then I was competing again.
And how long did the rehab take on each of those?
My left was really quick. Like I said, I was 3.5 months, and then I started back up competing.
Wow, that's super fast.
Yeah, which was amazing. So I just thought all of them would be like that.
Yeah, that's super fast.
The next one, I had a bad surgery, actually. And I didn't even know that this was the issue, but I was like, I was having a lot more issues, but they grafted the ACL straight up and down instead of at an angle, at the correct angle. So I always had problems with it. I didn't know why.
Yeah.
So that just goes to show it's like your surgeon matters. You have to research it out. Just don't go to anybody. But it retore again when I was doing a film for Battle of the Year during that time. Totally. So when I got an evaluation after that, that's when I found out. I was like, oh, dang, that's why my knee's been so messed up. And then by that time, I had arthritis in my knee because of all the damage that's been happening out of all these years.
Yeah, damage to your meniscus and stuff like that. Yeah,
totally. Just functionally, it didn't matter what I did.
Yeah. They removed my entire meniscus 8 years ago in my left knee, so I have no meniscus at all. It is horrifying some days. Yeah. Well, what's crazy to me though is that I remember getting a phone call one day, and it was when you were on set of Battle of the Year. And people were really worried about you, saying that you got hurt really bad. And I automatically assumed, okay, Steve tore his knee again.
I did.
As bad as that sounds, I was like, he tore his knee again.
Yeah.
He'll be good. And someone was like, nah, he fell. He fell really bad, and he may have hurt his neck.
Yeah.
So what happened on that movie?
Well, I mean, there was a collision on when we were doing tumble passes. It was just like one of those last minute things where like, all right, just go.
Yeah.
And we crossed and we hit midair, and I fell on my neck and head, and I had 2 herniated discs in my neck, and my body just went completely limp and felt like pins and needles all over my body.
Crazy.
Yeah, and so that was a really scary time because I've never had any neck issues or anything like that.
Yeah.
I didn't do any head spins because my mom was like, "Yo, mess up your neck," and then something like that happens. And I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
So what was the final medical diagnosis?
So I had 2 herniated discs, and they were rubbing against my spinal cord. So whenever I would move my head, I would feel what's it called? tingles all the way down my body and my extremities.
Okay.
And it was just wearing away. So I had to get those removed, and in my neck I have a fusion in 2 levels.
Wow. And correct me if I'm wrong. I heard you were doing a flash kick when you collided and fell. So you were high. You were up.
Yeah.
You were flying. Yeah.
Yep.
That's crazy, man. So what goes through your mind? I mean, someone that's been injured. I've been rushed to the ER multiple times on set for stunts. What goes through your mind when you have these injuries? Are you used to it? Or like, are you able to eradicate going through shock, or does it still get to you?
I think during that time I was like, oh, I've never felt this type of pain.
It's different.
Before.
Yeah.
It, like, nerve pain is crazy, because they said if I didn't get it fixed eventually, I could lose like function if it kept on wearing away my spinal cord, obviously.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit scary, but my mom is amazing. Just trying to find like the best doctors that we could find. Yeah. And I had Dr. Shami from UCLA, and he has the best bedside manner out of any doctor I've ever seen. He put a lot of confidence into me that it's like, well, if you can wait, but you should be able to get back to what you were doing eventually. Yeah. If you do this. Okay. So that, and then I actually ran into somebody that had the same issue at just getting my haircut. This woman had a fusion, and she was like, yeah, my pain went away and everything like that, talking about it, and I was like, all right, I think I can get back from this. Yeah. I knew it was going to take a long time, because nerves, there's not really a healing time period per se. Sometimes you have little things and that just stick with you or such. But for myself, through different types of injuries, I have to know and trust the people that are taking care of me and giving me advice. Yeah. Because if I just go straight on my feelings, I'm just going to be biased.
100%. Yeah.
So you have to trust the professionals. Even if they did something wrong, it's like you can't go through your whole entire life after that and be like, well, they said it's okay, but I'm not gonna try and recover start going and not be able to do what I love if they say that I probably can. Yeah. So that always, in my mind, was a definitely like positive thing for me, just to have that mentality going in. Okay.
And how do you, I mean, I've had a couple surgeries myself, and it's something that I've kind of gotten used to, but how do you approach your comeback stages? Do you do physical therapy with the doctor? Do you do stuff on your own? And then how do you start easing yourself into mentally throwing tricks again that injured you, so to speak?
Yeah, the process for me is like, listen to your doctor, go to your physical therapist. If you have one that you click with a lot, I've had the same physical therapist through every single surgery. Min Young from
shout out.
Yeah, shout out to her, because she's amazing. Wow. But I've had her every single time, and I trust her. And then we get back, and I can see physical improvements in whatever I do. So I do a lot of training outside. I listen to her, ask her questions, and it's like it's a slow process, obviously. And as athletes, as everyone that wants to get back, they kind of push it a little bit, which sometimes is good, sometimes is bad, because everyone has like, oh, I know my body, but guess what happens? You get injured again. Totally. So just going through the process so many times, you try and become wiser, and not try and push yourself too much. It's a really fine line between pushing yourself to have gains of different movement and strength, and pushing yourself to injury again. Because a big thing throughout that I'm finding out now is mobility is a big factor in my injuries later, because your body compensates so much. You might maybe have the strength, but then your functionality is completely different from what you were before. Because if you think about it, if you're not stretching, and in what we do with all the tricks, it's round movements. If you have a kink in there, it's going to throw your body off, and then you're going to be compensating different parts of your body. So just being wiser about keeping your body aligned and balanced and strength, and
all the stuff
in
we
middle
didn't think of as a kid, really.
Exactly.
It's crazy, So what are you doing these days as far as your tricking career? Are you still training for the fun of it? Are you still training to chase tricks, or just training to maintain?
A little bit of everything. And it changes on the daily, basically. So sometimes, it's like I have a process. I'm getting a lot more into kicks again.
Okay. Cool.
Obviously, training at a jam and Vlad's class and watching everything, I was like, well, if I can kick on the floor, I can do more variations in the air.
Yeah.
Because hip positioning and everything, if I have that type of flexibility, I found that my tricks come out way better. Okay. If I'm tight and don't throw my kicks before, it's going to throw off my trajectory because my muscle memory thinks I can kick up here
still do what you
and
used
kick
to.
as hard as I can. But if I kick as hard as I can and my flexibility is here, my base leg is going to be off and my landings are going to be off.
Yeah.
So just doing that and then going on to tricks and things like that kind of is my process now.
Do you have any tricks that are like an individual standard where you kind of check where you're at? Like for me, I go into the gym and I know if it's going to be a good day or not if I do a decent Webster. If I land heavy, I'm like, that's a wrap on today's session, guys. I'm going home.
Funny as it is, it's cheat 7
okay.
on my good side. Because I can do cheat 7 on my bad side way easier than I can on there just because of flexibility. Like my groin and hip flexors, if they're tight, I know I'm going to have to warm up a lot and then my body might not be in alignment.
Yeah.
So that, like your problem areas, I feel like you should focus on those and get that mobile. And then I can kind of tell if I'm going to be landing stuff better or worse.
Yeah, totally.
Just through that.
Yeah, and it's crazy, kind of something you just brought up right now really speaks to how, I don't know, for lack of a better term, how old school you are in tricking by doing things on both sides and opposites. Because nowadays I feel like all kids trick in the same direction as their momentum takes them. They all trick, if they're going to go this way, they do all their tricks this way. Some of the early competitors, including you, used to do a lot of your dominant kicks on one side and then do your twist moves to the other side. Like, because was that because you had a stronger pop to one side and then twist? Like, I remember you used to do pop 3 to the right and then B twist round to the left to start a combo.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of the same concept in the sense that, I'm a right-legged kicker.
Yes.
So if I do pop 3 on one side, it's gonna be on my right leg, and then the other direction, I'll do my tornado kicks, and then that's people's primary momentum will be going towards that way because most of the tricks go that direction.
That makes a lot of sense.
So, but when you're first learning martial arts, you're like, I'm going to do a jump 360 hook kick or jump crescent on your good side because that's your stronger. So I grew up doing that. That's why some of my tricks and a lot of people too that come from martial arts, they do some things better on one, some the other, instead of just learning one way as a momentum. Yeah. And it's a different mentality too because we're thinking about the kick, and then a lot of new people don't even do martial arts, and they're thinking about momentum.
Yeah. Thinking about how to land for the next
it's a different mentality of like, I want to, your point is to land.
Yes.
Only, well, not only, but focuses on that as opposed to, I'm going to kick as hard as I can in the right place and then like land into something else. What can I do from this position?
Yes, 100%.
Not necessarily a momentum thing.
Yeah, and for some of you guys out there that are watching, go back and watch some of the, I guess, OGs, so to speak. You'll notice that they do a lot of their pop kicks the opposite direction of their twists. I know you do. I know Jeremy. Jeremy can hit insane pop 1080s, which would be considered his bad side, but it's really his good kicking leg, which you just kind of spoke on. So with that being said, what do you think of tricking nowadays? Like, you've been there since the beginning. Now you're watching it. What's the level like? Did you ever think it would get to this? Are you impressed? Or
I'm definitely impressed. I mean, I always knew that tricking was an evolution.
Yes.
And I've seen different communities run into the same problems just between the different generations. Yeah. And I myself have had to update my views on it just through coming from martial arts and feeling like, this is what defines me. I'm a tricker and this is what it should be. And then watching people that don't come from martial arts come in and do some tricks and then some tumbling, and then not have the same intent of kicking and variating in that way, but then also pushing the human limit of, flips and twists and body awareness in that way.
We almost needed both sides, to be honest.
Yeah, it's like it's a different missing puzzle piece to this big thing that still isn't even done.
Yes.
So I think that it's amazing, because if I really look at that time and the new people coming up, there is a convergence just because of a vocabulary of movement.
Yes.
Over time, like the twisters, they'll want to have different variations off of their amazing skills. So so they still practice, crescent kicks, and that's an ongoing process, and we can all learn from each other. Through that. And as you get older, you're not going to be going for the craziest, triple quad or quads or anything like that when you're older. So I feel like for the newer generation to push that limit and have that vocabulary is great. And later on, they could learn different variations off of what they already know. So it's gonna open up so many different variations and different axes of movement and moves. Of tricks, because they're going to learn that, and then once they start learning the different kicks or body positionings, then it's going to create more moves that people can see, and then the next generation is going to come up and soak up all that information.
I think it comes down to a good combination of both, like you said. I remember Michael Guthrie was by far way more advanced than the average teenagers at a certain point, doing twists and crazy variations of doubles and triples, but his kicks weren't necessarily the best. And I remember we used to rag on him, like especially the three amigos and Danny, Denise, and Jeremy, they would rag on him. And I remember Guthrie kind of disappeared for like a year or two, came back, and his kicks are incredible now. I mean, he's got probably one of the best jackknives in the game, in my opinion. And I have to bring this up because we're both Japanese. What is going on in the water in Japan right now, man? What is happening at Tundra Gym? I don't know if you've been watching everything over there. The Japanese are taking over tricking, man. In all aspects. I know a lot of us, we're obviously going to talk about Shosei, but the Japanese in general have really, in the last few years, taken tricking on and just really elevated the level to a whole new standard,
Definitely. I think it's that young blood to just, I can learn this. And then once they do that, it's like, I'm going to do this next one that this other person did, because they have the information in their brain, and the visual is like, that's possible, and I can already do this when I just practice the new thing. And I remember that feeling too. It's like, the possibilities are endless because I can see it, and I can already do this movement. And then it's like Shosei, every single week he's coming out with a new variation or high level thing that people aren't doing. But he's putting together different pieces from high level acrobatic tricking and the variations. So it's just one of those things. It might be like cracked. I was like, man,
it's crazy, right? It's crazy. I know. He's literally pushing. I don't know. He's breaking boundaries almost every single day, it seems like, and he's doing the thing that Guthrie didn't really delve into, which is the double flip game. Because a lot of people, at one point, Guthrie was basically king of tricking for a while. But a lot of people don't know this, and I'm going to have Mike on as a guest here, but Michael doesn't like double flips. In fact, I'm going to not ruin it, but the only time he really ever did double backs back in the day was to like impress the girl he wanted to get with.
That's a big motivator. I know. It's like you have to have something pushing you. And that's definitely one of the motivators.
But Shosei, I feel like Shosei's just doing it to just be the first one to do these things. It's insane, man. Have you seen a move that he's done that has blown your mind recently? Is there one that stands out?
Oh man, I don't know. It's just like so many things that he does. I think that recently I'm not sure, but I knew once he did started going for like triple B twist, and then there's like I still feel like just being able to do that, or like because so many people can't can't even
Yeah,
get
it's
close
crazy.
to it, and that's like a rare thing to even go for
Yes.
nowadays, because I was like, all right, he can do that, and there's like, I don't know, like less than 5 people or like 3 people that
Yeah,
can do
there's
that.
very
I'm
few
like,
people.
oh my god,
I
just that.
I
That's
didn't.
when I was like, oh, I gotta keep on watching this kid right now and like just go through his Instagram and like.
Did you see
Yeah.
the raisin back out?
Yes, yeah.
It's crazy.
That, and I was reading all the posts about
Yeah.
it, but that's the thing that's cool about what he's doing, is that you have all these people that have been somewhat in the game, especially online. You always have these debates of, was that really Ray's
Yes.
back out and everything like
fully
that?
a backflip?
But he's the one asking. I was like he's doing it. So he's like, oh, this is my first one of that, and then you have this discussion of what defines what, and it's like when you have that much discussion about a movement, you're pushing the boundary for people to talk about it.
Yeah.
So
100%.
that's what I think is really cool about that that gym in general, like posts so many new moves and things, and then saying it's like, oh, this is this move, this is that move, because it generates people to have this discussion. And in general debate, people can get like fired up about it and everything, but it's good because people are talking about it.
Yeah. Do you have any advice that you would give to a young Shosei, for example? Like, the one thing I'm worried about watching this kid is that he's only been tricking 4 years. He's clearly setting the world on fire. He has not sustained a major injury yet, so we don't know what his mental game is like and what he'll handle. And we also just, I don't know. There's a lot that could happen in the next few years. He's at the age right now where he could meet girls and just completely leave this game, guys. Like, there goes our Instagram clips, Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So is there any advice that you would give to a young Shosei, coming from your background and your experience in the game?
It's like, well, like you said, he could just leave because his heart is somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot sometimes. But I feel like since it's in himself, it seems like that is pushing him to do these movements because he enjoys it. I've seen a lot of people come in to like competitions or anything like that and then be amazing at things, and because parents or outside sources are the ones that push him, or the thought of being a champion is what pushed him, and then they lose that fire. As long as he has that fire for his own self, then I think that'll bring him. I don't think any amount of advice to make him keep on going forever can do anything, because ultimately if your heart's not in it, you're not going to be pushing the boundaries for things.
Totally.
Because you have to have fun with it.
Was most of your motivation internally? Like, did you just basically motivate yourself to try to become the best and create new tricks, or were you trying to appease the community?
I was doing it mostly for myself.
Okay.
And because that was my outlet for self-expression and everything like that. Like, my mom would drive, like when I was younger, would drive me everywhere because I asked her to.
Okay.
And I think a big thing was me earning my way to go to these competitions, and I knew I had to sustain that amount of drive, and because I loved it. To be able to do all the things that I did, I had to be self-motivated and push the limit. And when you're performing live in front of a whole bunch of people, that's what I enjoyed. You get this adrenaline rush. I really like live performance. That's why I like doing Quest. And like live shows in general. Just not necessarily for like careers, but just for creative drive.
Yeah. And it's crazy because I remember, even though you push yourself individually, you had somewhat of a healthy rivalry with some of the guys out there. I remember like some of the first contests, it was you versus Kim Do, constantly going back and forth. And then I remember this one story, and I don't know if it's true or not. That's why I'm going to call you out right now and ask it live. Can you pull up Steve Terada New York sampler? I hope that's online. So this sampler was one of my favorite samplers back in the day. You were so hype. It was one of the first times I saw a double cork from the pivot, like the turn step. The back step. I think so. Yeah, I think Steve Terada New York sampler.
Or NY.
Or NY sampler. Man, I hope it comes up. It's indoors. Man.
It might be NY.
Yeah, check NY. If you find it, it's like indoors at a gym. And some of you would recognize. I think Matt Emmix filmed some videos in that same gym before, right?
Yeah, I was training at Matt Emmix.
Yeah. Okay.
During that time.
All right. Well, even if we don't find it, I'll try to find it at some point and throw a clip up online. But the reason why I was bringing up the rivalry was I heard a rumor that part of the reason why you went so crazy in that video was because of Chris Balua and a stolen T-shirt.
Yeah. Well, not necessarily one stolen T-shirt. Anyway, the story was I was friends with all the Loop Kick kids, and
for those of you who don't know, guys, really quick, Chris Balua was one of the pioneers of tricking as well with Steve. He was one of the first guys doing doubles and crazy variations as well.
Yeah, he invented a box cutter.
He invented the box cutter.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Basically, that's it. That's a big one.
It's pretty cool,
It's a pretty big move.
Yeah, exactly.
but they're all from up north, and they came down.
Okay.
And then we had them stay at my place, and then I don't know what the motivation was, but he got a pillowcase full of my clothes, and I had a custom made shirt that my friend made for me because during that time I had a nickname
Dope Turtle.
Because Kim Do named me that because of gaming. For StarCraft, it was like
that was your instant messenger name.
Yeah, my instant messenger name.
I used to talk to Steve on AIM. I'm Dope Turtle. I was LIL Travis, Lil Travis.
Oh my god!
And the R was an I in the number 2, because it was back in the text phasing, Man, so did you know he stole your shirts or?
Well, I think my mom was telling me, I think they stole stuff from the house. And I was like, no, they wouldn't do that. They're my friends and everything. It's like not trusting. I was like, my feelings were crushed because Chris and all the Loop Kicks people were putting up samplers, and Chris wore my shirt on his sampler, and people were going crazy for his because he was doing a lot of twist moves.
Yeah.
That were like groundbreaking and people weren't doing often. They were just high level moves.
And he's in your
shirt. I was like, no, that is it. And then I just went in the lab because that's when he came out with box cutter during that time.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm gonna get a box cutter today. And I just went in the gym and then just drilled for 3 hours straight. I was like, nope. Yep, I got it. and then that was my mentality. And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna get every move that this guy has.
No way. That's what happened.
So I was like, all right, I'm working on B2S swings. I'm doing do all this stuff.
Holy crap.
And then eventually it came to this tournament in France called NASK.
Yep.
And it was U.S. versus Europe. And they brought Chris DeVera and Hailey.
Oh wow, the old school
and
guys.
Balua. And then on message boards, they were like, "Oh my God, did you see what they did?" and all this other stuff. It's like, I think it was box cutter, double B twist, and
on the hard floor,
on the floors,
floor,
and everything. And it's like all those. I was like, all right, I'm doing every single thing that they did in the sampler.
In that one video.
that one video.
No way. That's why that video was so crazy.
Yeah. And then I was like, all right, I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna do some extra stuff that they didn't do, and all this other stuff, and trying to variate some more things. And then I went to train in New York at Matt Emmy's. We all went up there. It was Will Valentine and Sterling, and
shout out to those guys,
and Emmy, and we trained at Emmy's studio floor, and that's what that was.
I remember the blue floor with the wood background.
Yeah, it looked like someone's house.
Yeah.
But that was the school that he was.
The ceilings didn't even look that big.
Yeah.
I was like, how are these guys doing this?
Yeah.
Wow.
And luckily enough, I had a camera.
I was gonna say.
And the equipment by then. So
did you upload that to Bylang, or how did that one go off?
How
that New York one came out.
I think that was. It might have been the time when I had my website and paid for WebSpace. So I think I put it up on that and then linked it on the message boards. And then I was like, here.
No way. Wow. So literally that sampler is spurned on by the stealing of clothes.
Yeah. It motivated me. And I've had talks with Balua after this. I was like, man, you really pushed me to this. It's like, yeah, Blue just texted me saying that he was coming back to LA.
Yeah, he's in
now.
LA, yeah.
LA now, and it's like we're cool, and that beef
so...
has been squashed, obviously.
Dude,
but if I didn't
so
have certain motivators as rivals,
yes,
I wouldn't be where I am today, I think.
100%.
Just because of that motivation for rivalry is probably even stronger than self-drive of being better
100%.
For yourself
Yeah,
or just having fun. It's like, oh, well, if I'm not having fun, you could chill. But if you have something that's like, no, I gotta get this guy. Especially when you're optimistic. I was like, I'm gonna get this today.
Yeah.
When you're young and you have that fire, and that's what I hope happens with like the next generation. Is like, oh, it's with the competitions. I know like some of the tricking community doesn't like battles, but if you're in that level of competition and you lose, that should be a motivation. Be like, it's like, oh, I could have done that better. It's like, oh, he did this move and I don't have it.
Yeah.
Let me get that, and that's what really pushed me. And I think Balua too during that time to just do all that stuff. Even if that happens later on, unless there's like some real crazy stuff, rivalry, you'll probably come out way better for it.
Yeah, and this is a unique question because obviously you've been involved in that. I mean, you also have like, the dance background. What is your take on battling? Because I feel like the community's always been split amongst, people that love battling and people that are very non-confrontational. I personally love savage battles. Like we talked about, 2008 Loop Cakes is still one of the best ones of all time. Yes. What is your stance on battling, and have you been watching battles these days and seen the current formats? Like, what do you think of the current state of things?
I think it's cool to have different formats, like or different judging criteria for different things, and you can kind of choose between them because there's a lot of amazing trickers that aren't good battlers. Just because when trickers go to gatherings, it's not about cocking someone in their face or or calling them out on falls. It's a pretty positive experience training with trickers compared to other communities, because it's like, oh, you just got a 540, it's like everyone's going crazy for you and that type of thing. And to go from that community to like a b-boy dance type of battle,
very one-on-one format,
one-on-one, and then them in your face being like, oh, look at you, just did that, you fell on that, look at this. Which it going from that to there is sometimes hard for people.
Yes, but
I definitely enjoy both sides of that, because I like seeing people get hyped for each other, and then I also like the competition, obviously, from like rivalries or something pushing you outside of your comfort zone, and that's when things can be unpredictable. Because that's a different type of game. It's a mental game of being mentally strong and strategy and anything like that. So it kind of depends on the individual.
Yeah,
because I like both aspects. I like sessioning with people and having that feeling, but I also like the competition feel. So it just depends on the individual and the event. So I think both sides have positives and negatives.
Are we ever going to see Steve Terada battle again, or you in the judges seat nowadays? I'm
mostly in the judges seat. I think maybe if they had a generations battle, right? Because I definitely can't do any of these these doubles, and
you still got double B twist. I see.
Yeah, I still throw all the stuff that I could before, but that's at a different level right now. And what I enjoy is watching the next generation, and I think there comes a point that the old generation learns from the new, and vice versa, because of the different perspectives that there are. So I really enjoy watching people and be like, oh, it's like they're not going to see stuff that I've seen. It's like the wisdom versus the new blood that are doing stuff that is like that has that confidence in what they're doing. But it's like, oh man, if they just threw this extra kick or this hidden gem of a move that maybe this one guy back in the day that nobody knows about did. Would completely change or flip the script on the community today.
Okay. Yeah, totally. So since you're moving away from, battling, obviously, and you're getting a little bit older, what are you focusing on nowadays here in Los Angeles? I heard you're getting more into the acting or taking that a little more serious. Yeah,
just going back to the industry. I went to school for acting for a few years, and then Did some movement plus acting. It's like some stunts.
Okay.
And, some stunts with acting and all of that. Still training. I still judge tricking events and try and be in the community and like keep up, see what's current, and just in general, as myself, I like being a teacher. So just going to jam in general and like watching people are like, oh man, it's like if they just did this one little thing,
yeah,
and then they're so thankful. It's such a positive experience just being around people that want to learn, and then that's just another driving force. And sometimes I'll teach privates or seminars and things like that. So
press like or leave a comment if you think Steve Terada should teach a workshop at Jam. We just sucked him into that one. That was awesome. Yeah. No, that's really cool, man. Is there a project that stands out in your mind that you've had fun on? I just remember, seeing you in a bunch of things, and it was always just cool to recognize you. I remember you being the guy that falls over on his bike in Memoirs of a Geisha, and we had you on a show I worked on last season called Future Man for Seth Rogen, where you had a cool little acting part. Yeah. Is there anything else that people can like look for you in, or see you in, or look up?
Well, hopefully coming up, I'm in a movie called The Art of Self-Defense.
Okay.
Directed by Riley Stearns. I got to work with one of my old students, Mindy.
Cool.
Kelly, that coordinated, and then a lot of other amazing stunt people. I got to play a character on it, and do have like a couple fight things. So I got best of both worlds on that one because I love still moving around, and they let me do it.
Yeah. So, exactly.
And I got to act in it too. Jesse Eisenberg and Imogen Poots
sick.
and Alessandro. They're all the leads in there, and
awesome.
It should be amazing.
That's cool.
Hopefully, I'll be hearing about when it's going to come out.
Yeah,
pretty soon. I heard Riley talking about it, that he has some news possibly. So we'll see.
I mean, when that comes out, we'll bring you back on and talk about it and stuff. So yeah, I mean, with that being said, what do you want to be remembered for? Like, what's the legacy that Steve Terada wants to leave on this world? As you and I are starting to get older, this starts to be a little more real. What do you want to be remembered for, man? Because I feel like there's so many things that you've done in your life.
Oh, honestly, I feel like just a good person, really. What I've noticed a lot just throughout my whole entire career, when I started tricking, it was weird for a lot of people emailing me like, oh, how do you do this? Or it's like, oh, you inspired me to do this move. And then now from that point till now, even in the dance scene, I have people like I watch and seeing them be amazing.
Yes.
And them saying it's like, oh yeah, I used to watch you when I was in middle school or high school or whatever like that. Yeah. And I was like, if I have a relationship with them, it makes me feel fulfilled that I could be a part of their journey, because I know all the mentors and people that helped me throughout my career.
Yes.
You can't do it on your own, really. It's very rare. You have to have good people around you. And if I could be one good person for somebody to do great things, I don't need monetary, things coming back to me necessarily. But just for that instance, I think is an amazing thing to help someone feel the same joy in movement that I've done.
That's cool, man. No, that's a really cool perspective, especially from someone in the community that has such a stance where people look up to him. I think it's good for people to hear that. Yeah. So yeah, man, where can people stay up to date and follow you and keep up with your career? How can people keep in touch with you?
Mostly all my stuff's on, the Instagram, Steve Terada.
Cool.
Yeah, mostly that. Hopefully I'll be like videoing some more things.
Okay.
I have all the different social media stuff, so like YouTube and things like that. I might have to start using my camera to film some stuff this year, hopefully.
I feel like the community would like that, and I'd support it too, man. That's awesome. Well, man, listen, Steve, I really appreciate it. It's so cool to see. Like I said, we've known each other since we were little kids, and to be able to sit here and share some stories and reminisce and really let the outside world see what goes through the brain of someone that's had such an impact on our community. I really appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So thanks a lot. We'll definitely bring you back on when that project comes out. And if you have anything else in the future, just let us know.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that today. Make sure that you guys check out Steve's material online. Check out Steve Terada. We'll put some links in the description. And hopefully you guys got some insight into another pioneer and his impact on the community. Thanks a lot, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Make sure you subscribe for more. Like and leave a comment down below, especially if you want a Steve Terada workshop in the near future. Double like. And we'll catch you guys soon. This is another episode of the JAMCast. I'm Travis Wong. Thanks to Steve Terada. We'll see you guys soon.